Hello, everyone. My name is Debbie Lamb, and I am the Advanced Modality Program Coordinator here at CCBC. I oversee the CT MRI programs and now our new mammography courses. I just quickly wanted to send you a video update about how things are going with the curriculum development and kind of how I expect things to run when mammography students are at your site. First of all, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for allowing students to come to your site and for all your support for these mammography courses. We couldn't be successful in these programs without the support of our clinical preceptors. My information is here on the screen. My email address, phone number, and cell phone number in case you have any questions or concerns. I'm happy to answer anything. I know this, like I said, is going to be new to some facilities to have students, so I just want you to know that I'm always available to answer any questions. Just so you know, the mammography students will be starting in the fall semester. The mammography program uniform will be khaki scrub pants, just like the other advanced modality students wear, but the mammography students will wear a pale pink scrub top, just like the one you see in this image. I've instructed the students to make sure it's this color pink. I don't want students wearing fuchsia or dark pink. I want their uniform top to look just like this. They'll also be wearing regular medical shoes. I allow them to wear white or brown or navy, black, nothing crazy. They should look professional, or white. All white leather tennis shoes are fine as well. Part of the student uniform is also their ID badge and dosimeter, which they should have each day when they come to your facility. They may also wear a white plain lab jacket if they'd like, if it's chilly in the winter months, but that's all. I don't want them wearing any long sleeves under their scrub shirt or anything like that. Students should be in the appropriate dress code every time they come to your site. If they're missing anything, they're going to need to go home and get whatever they're missing and come back. I don't want any students in clinical without their ID badge or dosimeter. We will be using a system called eValue. If you have students at your site already, you're probably familiar with this system. If you don't, we're going to try to help familiarize you with it. We use eValue for time tracking, for evaluations, and this is also where all the students' medical and other information is housed. You're primarily going to be using it to do electronic evaluations. If you haven't already heard from my eValue administrator, you will be shortly. We're going to send you an email that includes your username and password with some instructions on how to use eValue. If you have any questions or have any issues using it and someone at your site can't help you, we're happy to help you. You can always contact Jess Shirky. She can kind of walk you through anything. It's also where the students, just so you know, all students before they come to your facility, I require all the students to have all their immunizations up to date. They all do a background check and drug screen. They're also all RTR, have a Maryland state license. I make them at wintertime get a flu shot. So they have all of the necessary onboarding stuff, just like the radiography CTMR students have. As far as mammography students go, we're not going to just throw them into clinical with no training. We are going to allow students to start clinical, of course, once all their onboarding stuff has been completed. Students are also going to have 2 lab practicals before they come. This is going to be done to kind of familiarize them with mammography terminology, the equipment, how to move the equipment, the routine views, some of the specialty views. We're going to do a little film critique while they're in lab. We're also going to go over a little bit of QC stuff. So they're going to have a little bit of a foundation before you see them. Granted, they're going to be very fresh and very new, but at least they should have a little bit of knowledge before they come to your facility. We're also going to make them complete Module 1 in the didactic course, and this goes over patient care, patient safety, a little bit of anatomy and physiology. So again, they're not going to be a seasoned mammotech when they start, but at least they're going to have a little bit of knowledge before we just throw them into clinical. The way clinical is going to run, the semester is a 15-week semester. It runs from August the 26th through December the 8th, but we're going to keep students at a clinical the first 2 weeks so they can complete their didactic course and their lab practicals. So you won't see students in your facility until the week of September the 9th. I'm requiring students to do 120 hours of clinical, which is 15 8-hour days. I did some research about other mammography programs in the state of Maryland and surrounding states, and that's pretty much what everybody does. Is typically it's about 120 hours in one semester. Some students might do 8 hours a week. Some students might do 16 hours a week. 16 hours is going to be the max that I let students do clinical, so you won't see them any more than 2 days per week. With that being said, some students are going to finish their 120-hour requirement earlier than other students. Some may take the whole semester. Some may only take half of the semester. And I'm going to kind of leave it up to you. If the student has completed all their necessary requirements as far as their exams go, but you still feel like they need more practice, we can recommend that the student do more clinical hours until the end of the semester. So I'm going to keep in good communication with you, and I'm really going to be looking over the evaluations you do. And if students need more time than 120 hours, we certainly can make those arrangements. The clinical schedule is going to be a little different than I do for CT and MRI. I think what I'm going to do is probably just send the clinical schedule to the specific site, and it's just going to have that one student's clinical schedule on there. I'm going to put at the top the student's name and their email address if you'd like to get in touch with them ahead of time. I'm also going to put the site on here and the site contact person, so that if the student wants to get in touch with you before they start, in case they have questions about parking or directions or anything like that. Student hours at the outpatient site are going to be 8 to 4:30. If that's not good hours for your site, please contact me and let me know, but it's kind of easier for me to keep track of time when everybody does the same hours. You'll notice on the schedule, you'll see the semester weeks followed by the student clinical days. So this weeks will go 1 through 15, and then you'll see the days that the student will be there. If there's any weeks that say pending, that just means that the student has completed their 120-hour obligation, but maybe the student hasn't finished all their exams, or maybe you're feeling like they need more clinical practice. So we can certainly schedule them in these last 2 weeks of the semester if you feel like they need more practice or they're not done. Like I said, clinical evaluations will be done through the eValue system. The students will get weekly evaluations done. So at the end of the week, the student will assign an evaluation to the preceptor. If you're not familiar with eValue, what eValue does is once the student assigns it to you, eValue will send you an email telling you that you have an evaluation to complete. It comes with a link. You just click on the link. It takes you right to the evaluation, and then you just evaluate the student and hit submit. So it's pretty simple, and I'm going to leave spaces in the evaluation for comments. I appreciate comments. The students appreciate comments. I think feedback helps to make them better. So please, the more information and help you can put on the evaluation for the student, the better. It is the student's responsibility to remind you to get these done. I always tell them, make sure that you tell the tech to check their email for the evaluation, because I know maybe you don't check your work email every single day, or if you have a couple of days off, you might not check it until you're back at work again. So I am going to put the responsibility on the student to remind you to get these done. I'm pretty much a stickler for attendance. My expectation is that students attend all clinical sessions that they're scheduled for. If they're unable to attend, I always tell them call their clinical site first, let you know that they're not coming, and then they need to let me know that they're not there. They also will need to make that time up, so it would be up to you to approve makeup time. I'll leave that up to you, and then have the student let me know what you decide. I also expect students to be on time. I mean, if their hours are 8 to 4:30, they should be there by 7:45, have their stuff put away, punched in, and ready to go by 8 a.m. If they're late, they will receive a point deduction on their grade. If they miss clinical, if they miss 3 or more clinical days, I mean, this is only a 15-week semester. If they miss 3 or more, I will drop them 1 letter grade for the clinical grade. Students will be graded in clinical the following way. Their attendance will be worth 20%. Their clinical competencies or clinical exam repetitions as required by ARRT and MQSA will be worth 15%. They will have 30% weight for the clinical evaluations. The number of clinical evaluations will, of course, be determined by how many weeks of clinical they go, and then I'll average all the grades together. They're also going to do a weekly journal entry to let me know how clinical's going. I want to know how clinical's going with them, the good and the bad, and I will share that with you if I feel it's necessary. And we'll also grade them on the 2 lab practicals they do. That will be worth 20% of their grade. Students will be evaluated on the following: professional appearance, their attitude, their initiative, how organized they are, their patient care and communication, and then a little bit more tougher things will be positioning and protocols, technical ability, film critique. Of course, those grades are going to be low in the beginning, but then as they gain experience, I expect those grades to go up. And then, of course, radiation protection. Are they protecting themselves? Are they shielding the patient when appropriate? So those are the things that they're going to be evaluated on the clinical evaluation. We have a strict rule here at CCBC that we allow no cell phones in the clinical area. We're very strict with this. I expect the phones to be off and put away. They can get them out when they're on their lunch break, but other than that, you should not see them. If you see a student on their phone during clinical time, please kindly tell them, put it away, and you can tell them that they may leave the facility. The first offense will be 1 week suspension. The second offense will be dismissal from the course. We had an incident a few years ago, and it could have been a really bad HIPAA violation with a phone being out and pictures being taken. So we take our cell phone policy very serious now. So cell phones should be put away at all times. I always tell the student they can give their family members or babysitter or school the site number in case someone needs to get in touch with them. If there's an emergency, they can call the site and then someone can track them down at the site. Students will also have with them in clinical a notebook. They should be taking notes while their clinical day is going on. They should be going home and studying those notes in between and then coming back their next day at clinical. I certainly don't expect you to start from scratch every single time they come back to clinical. Students should be studying their notes and studying their textbooks so that they're ready for each clinical day. Okay, so some of the requirements from ARRT and MQSA. I can tell you, I've learned a lot putting this program together. CT and MR are much more black and white than mammography is, and there's many more requirements that the students have to, that the students are required to do. The first thing the students are going to need to do is get their initial MQSA requirements out of the way. This is 25 supervised mammography procedures. This is the student actually hands-on performing 25 mammograms. Now, of course, before they start logging these procedures, they should certainly observe several before they even attempt this. So it might be 1 to 2 weeks into their clinical before they can start this. I'm going to totally leave that up to your judgment when students can start actually positioning patients. Students will log their 25 on this sheet that I've provided for them, so they need to print this off and bring this with them to clinical each day. So they'll log in here, whether it's a screening or diagnostic. They won't log any patient names, accession numbers, anything like that. They'll put on here whether it was 2D or 3D, the date, the time, the facility name, and then I'm going to ask you to initial it. When these initial 25 are done, the student will turn these into me, and I will have the student put me down with the ARRT as the supervisor for these, and I will do the initial sign-off through ARRT for these first 25. Once these first 25 are done, the student will go on to try to acquire their 75. These are going to be a little bit different because for these 75, the student doesn't turn them into the ARRT as a group. They turn each individual exam in individually. So the student will log the exams exactly the same way. They'll get your initial, and then the student will go home and log each exam into the ARRT website, putting you as the supervisor, or the verifier, I'm sorry, not the supervisor, the verifier. The ARRT will in turn send you an email asking you, can you verify that the student performed that mammogram on that day, and you will either accept verify the exam or reject the exam. If you get an email from the ARRT and you're not sure, maybe the student did it a couple of weeks prior and you're just getting to it, you can always ask the student to look at their log sheets because your initials should be on there. That way you can verify that yes, indeed, you did supervise the student doing that exam. So this is kind of the way the 75 are going to go when the student's logging those. At the same time, the student's going to be trying to log their QC documentation. The ARRT requires that students do all of these QC procedures. And you can see here the sheet that I provided them gives them enough spaces for how many are required, but I certainly expect the student to do more. Just because they've done 5 phantom images doesn't mean they can't do more for practice. They just really can only document 5. So when the student performs these at your facility, again, you're going to have to initial this. The student will log it into the ARRT website. You will be sent an email, and you will verify that, yes, indeed, you did watch the student do those particular procedures. The student is also going to need to document that they've sat with a radiologist and critiqued 10 mammographic procedures. I'm going to leave this up to you when you feel like the student should do this, or maybe get a few of them done, since you know the radiologist at your sites better than I do. If you know there's a radiologist there that's really open to having students, likes to teach and talk, maybe on that particular day, you can kind of steer the student into the radiologist's office and they can knock some of these out. Maybe they can do all 10, maybe they just do 3 or 4. I'm not going to ask the radiologist to sign this, but I'm going to ask you as the preceptor to sign that they completed these. And then again, the student will log these into the ARRT website, and you will be the verifier for the 10 radiographic critique interpretations. The last part of their requirements is that the student must observe, assist with, or participate in at least 4 of these 9 procedures. Again, I'm going to leave this up to you to tell the student when might be a good time for them to view one of these procedures. Maybe you can look at the schedule in advance and tell them when there's a needle localization. If you have MR at your site, maybe you know there's one on the schedule, you can steer the student back to MR. The student, again, will have to log these and put you down as the verifier, and then you will need to verify through the ARRT. Again, participate just means that they're actively involved. They don't have to be the primary person responsible for the exam. So if they help gather the supplies for needle localization, they talk to the patient a little bit, maybe holding a hand or getting supplies or whatever is needing to be done, I think it's perfectly fine for you to sign off that they observed that procedure. Anything that you sign on the student sheet, any persons that sign, the student will need to get your information so that they have that to log into the ARRT website. This is what our verification identification page looks like. They're going to need your name. They're going to ask you to initial this sheet. They're going to ask you for an email address. I don't care if you give them a personal or your work, doesn't matter. Whichever one you check most often, I would say give the student. So when the student asked you for this information, that's why they're getting it, because they need it so they can log their exams into the ARRT website. When the student is totally finished, they're going to apply to take their certification exam in mammography. At the very end, the ARRT is going to ask for a supervisor that can attest to everything that the student put into the site is true and accurate. That supervisor is me. I don't want to put that responsibility on any of the techs at the sites. So when at the very end, if the student puts you in as the supervisor and you get an email from the ARRT asking to be the supervisor, please just reject it and tell the student to change it to me. I also have other requirements that I make the students complete before I'll sign off. So it would be helpful if you would just let me know when the student does that, and we can instruct them on how to change the supervisor over to myself. So anyway, that's kind of how the mammography program is going to run. Like I said, this is going to be our first time running this course. There may be things that we're going to need to change. I'm sure we're going to find 10,000 things that don't work that we're going to need to change. I feel like I've done the best that I can, but I certainly will appreciate your feedback at the end of this semester, so that when we run this again in the spring, if there's anything that you feel like we should do differently, I would certainly appreciate you letting me know. Again, please contact me if you have any questions or concerns. I'm also going to send you this PowerPoint just as a file, so in case you just want to save it so that you have some of the information that I'm giving you. You can save it and just use it as a reference. So again, thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you all.